at the Palestinian American Community Center. I want to welcome you all to our second day of our annual Palestine Week. So for today, we have our book talk, and I am pleased to be welcoming Dr. Brian Barber, who is presenting to us No Way But Forward, Life Stories of Three Families in the Gaza Strip. We're grateful and excited to begin today's talk, and we are live streaming the discussion on Facebook and YouTube, so feel free to share those links out to anyone who couldn't make it here in person. Just a few reminders on our slideshow. So PAC is a nonpartisan, non-religious 501c3 nonprofit, and our mission is to strengthen and sustain ties to Palestinian heritage while empowering the well-being and success of the entire community. And our theory of change is that if we empower individuals in our community, then our community will be organized and stronger. If we empower the community, then we will enable positive change in our society as a whole, both here and in Palestine. And so, once again, just a reminder, this is the second day of our annual Palestine Week. We have 4 more events lined up this week, so tomorrow we have a break. On Thursday, we're going to be having our culture night. This is going to be a DEPCO workshop as well as an open mic, and that's going to be at 6 p.m. here at PAC. On Friday the 13th, we're going to be having the Palestinian flag raising at Clifton City Hall at 6 p.m. On Saturday, this was yesterday's event. We had a Know Your Rights workshop. We had flag making yesterday and today. If you haven't gone to vote already, you have about an hour. So I would go leave and come back if you haven't voted. This is today's talk. We're also going to be joined by Dr. Ahmed Al-Husseina. I'll be introducing the rest of the itinerary. Palestinian Culture Night on Thursday. And then we have a flag raising. So the first one in Clifton on Friday, the second one in Haledon at the Haledon Municipal Complex at 1 p.m. on Saturday, and the last one, Clifton, at 1:30 on Sunday. So these are all the usual ones. And then during our Clifton flag raising on Sunday, we're also going to be doing a cultural food drive. So if you attend, or if you know people attending, have them bring some food as well that we're going to be donating. And then you can check out all of our other upcoming events. You can just feel free to scan the QR code, or you can check out our website later on after today. You also have the option to book a workshop with us if you are part of an institution. If you work somewhere, you can book PAC for any types of workshops. These are all available on our website as well, paccusa.org. You can join our Palestine Action Collective to do more direct action work. This is something that we're working on here at PAC. You can support our latest documentary, Echoes of Home. We released the first episode, and we need your support to help release the remaining episodes. So please support the documentary. If you know any students or young people, have them apply to our 2 internships. So the first one is our Advocacy and Community Engagement Internship, which is an 8-month-long term where they'll learn how to organize and uplift the community, as well as we'll be building them to be leaders in the community as well. And then we have our grassroots organizing team, which works directly for the Civic Engagement Department on getting out the vote, different civic engagement initiatives. And this is a 8-hour-a-week internship that runs from July to December. Feel free to complete our community needs survey. I'll go back to this at the end. And support PAC through any way you can. Go through our mailing list, engage and share with our resources. Volunteer with us. We have wonderful volunteers like Ahmed, Yasmin, Fatin, Hamad in the back. And if you don't already, you can support us monetarily. You can be a monthly donor as little as $10 a day. Anything goes a long way, so please be sure to support us in the variety of ways that you can. And then follow us on social media if you don't already. And so with that, I'm pleased to introduce our event for tonight. So No Way But Forward, is a deeply moving exploration of life in Gaza through the eyes of its families, decades of resilience, trauma, resistance, and survival. Drawing from over 25 years of immersive research and interviews, Dr. Brian Barber, who is joining us tonight, documents the personal stories of Palestinians living under siege and occupation, focusing on the enduring strength of family bonds in the face of unimaginable hardship. Our talk tonight will be moderated by Dr. Abdelhamid Siam, who is a journalist and a lecturer at Rutgers University. We're also honored to be joined once again by Dr. Ahmed Al-Husseina, who is a survivor of the current Gaza genocide and a professor at Al-Isra University in Gaza, and he will be offering firsthand testimony and context to the lives reflected in the book. Please be patient as we will be taking questions at the end of the session, or whenever our speakers would like to open up the floor. We'll also be selling the books tonight, and Dr. Barber will also be signing the books as well, so please stay to the end of the session so you can receive your copy and get a sign. And so with that being said, I'd like to introduce our panelists. Please give them a round of applause.
Assalamu alaikum. It's my great pleasure to be moderating this evening with Dr. Brian Barber, who is a scholar, a writer, a professor at the University of Tennessee. He spent most of his career life with the Palestinians for 30 years. He lived in Gaza. He got to know the people in Gaza. And he lived in Jerusalem as well. He did research on about 10,000 Palestinian families. So he's a friend of the Palestinian, he's fighting for the Palestinian. And that's now, it is with a price. Now, if you stand up to support the Palestinian, you pay a price, as you all know. And this book just came out. I mean, it was published in January 2025. In fact, the last chapter of the book is about what happened to these families that he got to know in Gaza. The family of Hamman, the family of Khalil, and the family of Hussein, which he met in Gaza, and he kept following them all the way until now. And during the war, the last war, he was in contact with them on a daily basis. And he published some of the letters he received from them. Of course, many, like Hussein and Khalil, and Hamman lost their wives. There was their children, there was their wives, there was their homes. So from the time the book had been published, which was published during the break, during the ceasefire in January. No, we didn't. January 15th. So from that day until today, imagine how many people were killed. And we have to mention that it's because of the US. This war would never have lasted that long and caused that much suffering for the Palestinians if it's not for the US. It's a US-Israeli war. And last Wednesday, just to remind you, the US cast a veto. It was a very mild draft resolution introduced by Algeria. It has 2 points only: ceasefire and humanitarian aid and the release of hostages. And follow up with that, keep the Security Council following the case. Just very simple. Yet they vetoed, and 14 voted for. And the American representative, Dora Fashia, raised the only hand against the draft resolution. And that hand, when it was raised, it means killing, it means destruction, it means expulsion, it means also displacement. And this is happening every single day as we speak. Many people are killed today. And also, 2 So the killing is continuing as we speak. So no one can talk about the whole situation better than Brian, who knows the Palestinians, who lived with the Palestinians. And I'm so proud that he came all the way from Washington to talk to the community here about his experience with the Palestinians and about this great book, which is I strongly recommend that everyone take not only a copy for yourself, but also a few copies to give your American friends. Because that is it's a different book. It's not a research like academic research, although it has a lot of references and, just like any textbook or any research, but also it has that human side, talking about living with it. And so I strongly recommend that you get a number of copies if you can. Now I turn the floor to Dr. Brian, who will talk to you about the book, and then Dr. Ahmed Hassan will make some commentary before we take question and answer. Thank you. You want something? Standard.
Whatever you like.
What feel comfortable?
Yes, of course.
In late 2012, Israel launched what it called Operation Pillar of Defense. The Israeli military claimed that it was designed to deliver a painful blow to Palestinian resistance in Gaza. Hamas claimed that its barrage of more than 1,500 mostly makeshift rockets into Israel was in response to the assassination of two top Hamas leaders in downtown Gaza City. Ehud Barak, the Prime Minister of Israel at the time, said that his military dropped 1,000 more explosives than it ever had before, hitting 1,500 targets. The operation killed 167 Palestinians and injured 1,200. Hamas's rocket fire killed 6 Israelis and injured 240. But these casualties were nothing compared to what would come 2 years later. In 2014, the bunker buster bomb smashed into the sandy street 50 meters east of Haman's home, leaving a barren crater the size of a truck. The sound was deafening. The bomb made the earth shudder ferociously for hundreds of meters around, shattering windows and crumbling cinder block homes. It propelled Habiba, a man in Shadda's 2-year-old daughter and youngest child, out of her small bed with a shriek, "Mama!" A man was closer. He grabbed Habiba, pressing her against his chest so that she could feel his heart beating. But all she could hear were her brother's screams and sobs. This nearby airstrike occurred midway through the 51-day bombardment of Gaza that began on July 8, 2014, called Operation Protective Edge by the Israeli military. It was exponentially worse than the previous Israeli operations. By the end of the operation, the IDF had launched more than 6,000 airstrikes, killed more than 2,200 Gazans, most of them civilians, injured more than 11,000 Gazans, destroyed 18,000 homes, partially or completely, and displaced 500,000 people, representing 28% of Gaza's population. Approximately 73 Israelis, mostly soldiers, were killed, and more than 1,600 were injured. The most devastating feature of Operation Protective Edge was that virtually the entire strip was bombarded. In the summer of 2014, there were no safe places in Gaza, and this complicated Haman's response to the phone call he received during the bombardment. For days, people had been streaming down their streets, fleeing the heavy bombing in the eastern villages near the border fence. The landline rang early in the morning. In broken Arabic, the caller identified himself as the local commander of the IDF. "You have 10 minutes to leave. We have targeted your house to be bombed. Click." A man tore downstairs to consult with his father. They raced through all the central questions. Should we leave? If so, where will we go? When can we come back? Should we stay? Which is riskier, to stay or to go? Should we split the family up, some going and some staying? Or do we want to die together? They decided to stay and protect themselves as best they could because there seemed to be no safe place to go. They figured that their chances of survival might be better than other people's chances since their house was relatively new and built to higher standards. It might withstand the barrage of shells that the tanks on the other side of eastern France were firing every minute. A man ran back upstairs, wondering where he would be safest for the family. A metaphor leaped into his mind. I'm a chess player contemplating a move. I'm a very good chess player. His next move was to order everyone into the middle bedroom away from the outer walls. 3 kids on the bare tiled floor and 2 on the bed with Shada. Everyone covering themselves with the thin sleeping mats. Then Hammam laid himself at the feet of the other older boys, his torso against Muhammad's feet and his legs on top of Fuad's ankles. Meanwhile, Fatima asked Hani's family to move in with her and Fuad in order to turn the family first floor apartment into a refuge. She and Fuad pushed all the furniture out of the salon and covered the floor with as many sleeping mats as they could gather. She quickly gathered some food, but her shelter could only hold about 50 people crammed together. The rest poured down their street toward the city center. Some women were carrying their children, dazed and screaming, "Where are we?" Fatima agonized. What can I tell them? There's nothing in the city center for them, and the UNRWA shelters are already overcrowded with people grieving over loved ones who have been killed, distraught about injuries, home demolitions, horror. We are waiting for a miracle. We must keep this ray of hope alive in us. This spate of shelling and bombing was a turning point for Hammam. The strip had been bombed many times, but 51 consecutive shattering days was worse than a nightmare. Hammam and his family had handled the previous war well, but this was too much. He needed to vent into the threadbare pillow that struggled to soak up all his tears. What is our crime? What crime have my children committed? I know the answer. You will say that we are Palestinians, and therefore we are terrorists. We are not. I hate war. I have always been for peace. I am against horror and terror and killing civilians. Shada has always been for peace. Fuad and Fatma only want peace. All my friends have yearned for peace, but where can I find it? There is no peace. It is just their work. Well, first of all, thank you all for coming. I feel very privileged to be here tonight. I've given a half a dozen or so of these book talks since the book came out, but this is my first audience that is Palestinian, predominantly, which allows me to say that the single most valuable privilege of my life has been to come to know Palestine and its people. I am a much better person because of my association with you over these last 30 years. I read this excerpt from Hammam. Hammam is in the middle. To set the tone. That was 2014. And you don't need a reminder of how millions times worse it is now since October 2023. Hammam himself has been displaced 11 times. The last time 2 weeks ago, back to Mawasi, back to the tent. And he knows that he'll never be able to return to Khan Yunis again because everyone suspects that Khan Yunis will be turned to rubble like So maybe a little bit about how I got involved in Palestine. I don't want to dwell on it because I welcome your questions if you want more detail. But it was in 1994 when I was asked to join a research team of sociologists and psychologists studied the Palestinian family. This was just a year after Oslo had finished, and there were concerns in the Western world that because of the great autonomy that youth expressed during the Intifada, going out to throw stones every day for 6 years, that somehow that would have collapsed or broken the Palestinian family, the authority bonds. I said no to the invitation repeatedly because I was busy studying youth and families in 12 other cultures around the world, and I must admit that I had no interest whatsoever in Palestine, and I certainly couldn't have told you where Gaza was in 1994. I joined the team eventually, and we did the large study that Hamid mentioned. And then the research team was ready to write up our findings. We're professors, and our duty is to publish articles and books. And we had studied by then 7,000 families, the largest data ever collected on Palestinian families still now. And we started to write up findings. You know, the biggest finding that I found, I was on the team because I'm a youth expert. The biggest finding that I found was that, contrary to Western theories, that anyone, especially a young person who experiences a moment of trauma, that they're going to be messed up psychologically and socially for the rest of their lives. Our theories say even one event can do that to a person. Well, so what would I expect from a youth population who had just experienced 6 years of almost daily trauma and violence? Our theories would have said they are destroyed. They're going to be miserable. We found the exact opposite. A population of young people who were dedicated, forward-looking, proud of the cohesion they experienced during the Intifada, and looking for a hopeful, peaceful future. So we started writing this up, and I felt that somehow I couldn't do it yet because for 2 reasons. One is that we had only studied in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, and how could we purport to have studied the Palestinian family if we had not gone to Gaza? My team members didn't want to go to Gaza. Even then, 1995, Gaza was marginalized and thought of as the hellhole full of hornets' nests. And logically, I couldn't do it. So I just said, well, I'll go to Gaza and do the survey. And a graduate student joined me. And there is where I had the most meaningful experiences, because rather than just doing the superficial survey research that we do, I dove into the culture. I felt I couldn't write authoritatively about Palestine unless I had gone as deep as I can go. And that to me meant living with in refugee camps with families in Gaza. And I started in 1996 living with a man's family. This is, by the way, a picture of him at that time. He looks lots older now. Right. So that started long terms of residence for every year since 1996 until 2020 when Corona hit bad. I was in Gaza every year, once or twice, for weeks or months at a time. Again, just trying to learn and absorb and try to understand what to me already was a remarkable people because of the way the youth had responded to the Intifada. Okay, so that's kind of what I did. I had a permit. I had to renew my permit from the IDF. You might already know that for decades now, one needed a permit from the Israeli military to enter Gaza if coming from Israel. I renewed that, and
scheduled my arrival for October 15, 2023, which of course I couldn't do because of October 7th. Now a little bit about the book itself. This is a book about people. It's not about politics, it's not about religion, it's not about war, it's not about conflict, it's about people. Everyday, normal, fully human people. And isn't it perverse that we have to make an argument that this group of human beings is not fully human, or really is fully human? Isn't that perverse? A human is a human. But Israel's biggest accomplishment, in my view, has been to characterize you as less than human. I heard that from my earliest days in Palestine, especially in Gaza, feeling as if we were subhuman. All Palestinians have ever asked of me has been to tell their story. This is my attempt to do that. To teach the world the obvious reality that you are fully human, capable, dignified people. To counter that narrative that Israel has been so effective in communicating. Since very few people had gone to Gaza and very few could go, and now virtually no one can go, I wanted to bring you there. And this is the attempt of the book, is to take you to Gaza and learn how good, honest people full of integrity and dignity live their lives under an increasingly onerous and malicious occupation. I open with just a brief intro that covers what I thought were the relevant historical and political events that you need to understand if you're to understand Palestine and Gaza. A little bit about why I went and so forth. And then the first 2/3 of the book are the narratives of these three individuals who I came to know in 1996. Khalil on your left, a man in the middle, and Hussein on your right. They grew up during the Intifada. They were in their early 20s when I met them. And for a variety of reasons, I kept in touch with them. I'm in touch, of course, with hundreds of Gazans and other Palestinians, but these three I kept in touch with for a variety of reasons. And I narrate them their stories sequentially of their lives, the recollections of their younger lives, their Intifada lives, and then how they have made life work in the ensuing decades, finishing education, marrying, having children, finding employment, and the like. Everyday living that most any human being, including Americans, could understand. And I think, frankly, that many people who will read this who are not Palestinian will think, wow, that's just like me. Those are the same decisions I had to face. Those are the same heartbreaks that I had to face. And then they'll realize that it's actually happening in that ugly hornet's nest in Gaza. Their stories ended in about 2022. And I was really ready to start to publish the book, and October 7 happened. And I had the idea that I wouldn't finish the book until I was able to record their experiences post-October 7. So the last third of the book are their direct messages to me on WhatsApp, sometimes on a daily basis, a weekly basis, of how life has been since October 7, 2023, for a full year up until October 7, 2024. And that's where the book ends. So a little bit about the characters. I started with Hamam, so I'll finish. Hamam calls himself the social man. He's easygoing, boisterous, funny, loves to be with people. He has a PhD finally, but he prefers to stay a headmaster of a boys' school. Well, until when. His father was Mukhtar of their family branch in Gaza. The Kakawi family is one of, I think, 19 families of the Barber clan. And in Gaza, there are 3,000 Fakawi members. And Fuad was and still is the Mukhtar, but when Hamam was just in his 30s, Fuad deputized him. And so he began doing all of the work of the Mukhtar, except for the very heavy cases, which his father needed to handle. So there's great stories in here about the type of things that he had to deal with, and everything from petty clashes and fights and home disturbances, up to murder, which is when Fuad, the father, had to jump in and help solve this issue. So that's, I think, amazing cultural insight, especially for those of us who have no clue what the tribal system is like. Hamam had 4 kids. He had a year of agony, stigmatized as infertile, just like we here are stigmatized when we don't have kids. But they finally had kids after he had an operation. He had 4. They're now between 18 and 10. I'm in touch with them like I am with the others regularly, almost weekly, via WhatsApp. Khalil, on your right, your left, a very different person. But by the way, these 3 have never met, which I still find intriguing. And the goal was always to bring them to one of these events, for them to meet and for them to answer your questions. Inshallah. Khalil, very tall, deep voice, always conveyed an authority which he felt he never deserved. He felt naive. His family was very poor. From Khan Yunis camp, also Hamam, from Khan Yunis camp, Khalil also, but at the far western edge. His mother was illiterate, but she taught firesides every night to her 7 kids. And so eloquently that someone would have guessed that she was a learned teacher. And Khalil always took those messages to heart. She taught them to care for others, to be fair, and to give. He made his way through school. In the Intifada, he was too shy to participate directly. He just thought his head was better than his arms throwing stones, so he stayed back until once in the second month of the Intifada, he was outside playing marbles with a group of kids, intentionally avoiding the clashes going on in the camp. And here come a troop of soldiers harassing them and demanding their ID cards. Of course, you know that at 16, you have to have an ID card, Israeli authorized ID card, and without it, you're illegal. And so these cards are just precious. And the soldiers yanked them, and they were about to harass them in other ways. I'm telling too much detail, but please read it. And then a group of mothers came running and screaming around the corner, fist in the air, leave them alone, they're just kids. And for whatever reason, the soldiers decided they'd back off. Khalil was relieved. safe. The soldiers left with their ID cards. So none of the boys had an ID card. Fear. What's going to happen to me? He went home, talked to his parents. They were all so upset. What's going to happen if he gets caught with his ID card? Without his ID card, he could be detained, he could be jailed, he could be beaten. I like this story a lot. So that night, soldiers banged heavily on the door like they did every night. Every man in the household would get out, clean the streets of the rocks, the stones, whitewash the walls from the graffiti. And this was kind of daily, nightly routine. It was the same troop of soldiers that had accosted them earlier, but they didn't recognize Khalil. He recognized them. Took them to the streets. They did the cleanup. Khalil was shaking so nervously. What if they asked for my ID? Well, they lined them all up, get in one line, and show your IDs. So his brother was next to him, and his brother Khalil was beside himself, and Jabbar finally had to tell him, Khalil, just tell them the truth. There's nothing else you can do. Where's your ID? I don't have it, sir. Why not? Well, actually, the soldier took it from me earlier today. Yeah, right. They didn't believe that. So, cuffed him, blindfolded him, threw him in a Jeep, along with one of his other marvelous buddies, and took him off to what turned out to be 10 days of torture. The first 5 days, 6 days, were in a 10 by 10 foot by 10 foot pen with 15 youth crammed in it. Couldn't sit, couldn't kneel, couldn't lay down. 5 days in a row, just standing. Then they were carted off to Gaza City, to Ansar II, and they were made to stand outside in the cold. As some of you certainly know, it can get very cold in Gaza. And so they're just shivering for 3 days, just standing there, not allowed to move. And once Khalil dipped his knee down just to get an adjustment, and he got hit by a baton and said, don't you move again. Well, I'll end the story. Finally, all of the kids have gone. They've gone into interrogation, heard them screaming, and then so the commandant asked these two to be sent in, and they took off their blindfolds finally and walked them into the commander's office, and he said, so what? So I don't see any charges against you. Why are you here? And they told him the story. And he said, oh, that's all. Why don't they go? And had they make their way back to Khan Yunis from Gaza City without ID cards. It was curfew at night, so they were illegal for curfew and without ID. They made it back home, and Khalil asked his brothers and fathers, teach me about the political parties. The soldiers made me an activist. So onward, he finished school. He wanted to go get his graduate degrees, but he took a job as the leader of a failing human rights outfit in Gaza City, and spent the next 12, 15 years running that, until Hamas decided to have enough of his complaints, and they brought him down, interrogated him so ferociously that he virtually had a nervous breakdown and had to leave Gaza for 6 months to collect himself, came back in 2017, and he's made a life for himself now. He won't go near official human rights work. He felt betrayed, but he's making life work, and all he cares about is getting education for his 3 kids. Okay. Sam is the scholar of the 3. All Hussam cares about is knowledge, learning, and he requires evidence before he believes something. So he heard from his grandparents, his uncles, and aunts the stories of the Nakba, and he believed them wholeheartedly in his heart from the emotional standpoint. But at 14, he said to himself, I really need to know if this is true, intellectually as well as emotionally. He decided he would spend every day after school for 4 months, eventually, studying, reading everything the libraries had to offer, so that he could become convinced that the land was his. He decided to communicate that as a budding teacher by putting posters on the back wall of his classroom, teaching what he had learned. Some teachers loved it. One teacher was furious because the teacher could well have been arrested for allowing someone to post Palestinian history on the wall. He was a leader in Intifada, was imprisoned 3 times, severely tortured. He made it through, finished his education, went to the United States to get a master's degree. Back home, rising in the university administration system to Malaysia for a PhD. And he and his wife, have 5 kids. And all they care about now is finding ways to keep their education going. They're all studying remotely when they have battery power and connection at their various levels of school. So I'll stop there.
Thank you, Professor Brian. As he said, this book is all about the human, about samples of the people in Gaza and how they struggled through the years of bombardment, occupation, killing, invasion, and how they managed to strengthen themselves and raise families. So I'm going to turn the microphone to my friend and brother, Dr. Ahmed Hassaina. And if you want to choose to talk in Arabic or in English, it's up to you. He will make some comments, and he knows some of those people. They know each other. So,
Yeah.
so please, the floor is
Assalamu alaikum. First, I would like to thank Dr. Abdul Hamid for giving me this chance, and I'd like to thank PAC and the staff for hosting us here. And also, I would like to welcome Dr. Barber here for his passionate and influential speech just now. Thanks so much for this. And it's a wonderful speech. It's building so beautifully the profound stories in No Way But Forward. I do admire your rigorous commitment to the accuracy of the stories. Just like you said in your book, you were actually, if you couldn't understand, you had it recorded on an audio, and then you had to translate it again just to get the real feel of what was going on. I know Hussam Abu Shawish, the one on your right, this doctor, he was teaching at the same university I was at. Khalil Abu Shamala and Hammam al-Faqawi. I met Khalil one time, I don't know personally, but I know Dr. Hussam very well. I was talking to him last week. I didn't know it was him in the book until I read the book. By accident, when I found out his last name, I thought it might be him. I contacted him, and then there he was. I didn't know that was his story. I can relate to most of the stories in the book, especially with the Intifada. I was a senior at the high school in Jabalia Combat, Fallujah, in 1987 when the Intifada broke. And I went through almost the same thing he did, the stone throwing, the beating up. I was beaten up, was broken my arm a few times by the Israeli army right before I left, before we finished high school, of course. I was arrested for 18 days. I went through interrogation for 3 days. Beaten up. After that, you sit there for 18 days if you have no charge. They just let you go home. I think almost 80% of the youth at that time in Gaza went through that 18 days. Everybody knows you're going there at least for 18 days. The first 3 days is interrogation. You will sit on a chair, tied up and beaten up and asking all the same question. 3 different guys coming up every hour asking the same exact question. Well, who was throwing a stone? Who was with you? Did you not? All these. And the second guy comes in, the same story you have to tell. The same exact story. They're trying to find, I guess, discrepancy in what you say. And after 3 days, if you don't confess for anything, they give up on you. They send you to the tent to wait for another 15 days, and you go home. If you confess for something, of course, you're gonna get charged and get a couple of years in prison. Like you said, I was talking to Dr. Hassan. I was going through your book, and here's I was most moved by incredible resilience of Hammam, Khalil, and Hassan. They went through a lot of stuff, and they still, managed to get education, to get life, to get marriage, and they have their own kids. Their own kids now. They go on to college. Most of their kids, some of them already graduated, as I understood from them. This book is, underscores the Palestinian spirit's and ability to endure, especially that I have known one of those book characters, Dr. Hassan, and I've worked with him closely at Israel University, where he invited you for a lecture, and Dr. Barber did the lecture at our university. I think it's 2019, I don't remember. And that was in the old campus before we moved to the old new campus, which was also destroyed in 2024 on January 17th. You've probably seen the video. We've already seen the video of that university. Was one of the nicest building in Gaza. They booby-trapped it after they stayed in the same university for 70 days. The IDF came out, booby-trapped it, and demolished the whole building. And they don't want to post the video. Actually, nobody was there. The Israeli army, the one who posted that video, they were posting, they were happy, and they were cheering, destroying everything in there and the museum that it had. I've already talked about that. I was particularly struck by your emphasis on everyone's struggle and participation in the Intifada, which, as I said, I would relate to that because like I said, everybody went through the same thing at that certain different levels, of course, of anxiety. The life story of the 3 families in Gaza is profoundly impactful and essential read, offering a rare and deeply humanizing a glimpse into a region often reduced to headlines and political discourse. A region that is only one of the world's most complex and often most understood regions. Like Dr. Barber said, a lot of people think that Gaza is nothing but non-human people living there, animals that they have no life but struggling or fighting with the Israelis. We all are humans. We have our own life. We have our own kids. We have our own grandkids. We went through so many years of that. I left when I was a teenager after high school. I came straight to the United States. So I didn't go through after I went mid-Intifada. I was back home when the last war broke, October 7th. I was there for a couple of months, and I left through the Egyptian border. Like you said, the same feeling that everybody has. Before you go to sleep at night, you say your prayers, it's Shahada, you say goodbye to everybody, and you stay together. You wanted to die together. The whole family stayed together, everybody doing the same thing. That's what everybody was going through. I know now it's a lot worse. There's starvation, there's no water, there's no food, there's no flour, and if you find it, even if you have the money, you can't find it. If you find it, it's like 5,000, at least 100 times over. The bag of 25 kilos of flour was 20 shekels before the war started. Right now, it's 1,600 shekels if you find it. They sell it now by the kilo. The kilo is like $15, 75 shekels right now. 1 kilo. So, and count, you could measure on that all the other fruits and vegetables if you find it. One onion was $15. I sold it on it. They were sending the prices and you can find it if you're lucky, if you can get to it. You travel to the south, you walk to the south, there's no traveling, you use a donkey carts or whatever. And sometimes you are gambling with your own life if you try to get some food right now. You go and you don't know if you're gonna come back or not. A lot of people never came back. A lot of people went to get food for their family and they never came back. And just on Saturday, I lost another 15 people of my own family. They knocked a couple houses, the whole house was, nobody came out alive. They're still under rubble. 10 right before I started here, they bombed again the same spot. It's empty. So nobody's safe. You don't even know if you're gonna make it to the next day or the next minute. It's a really tough thing. But live alone, I want to talk about the book. My Brian have done do this to individuals who, despite circumstances that might overwhelm many, who experience oppressive military constraint, violence, humiliation, and loss. Despite these immense challenges, the narratives highlight their perseverance and efforts to build families, pursue education, and live life to the fullest. They try to live life to the fullest, and even during the war, there was a lot of marriage ceremonies, like you've probably seen it. People were still getting married, getting engaged. Even through the war, they were getting married in the tents. They were going on with their life. They don't want to stop the life. Education is really destroyed, like most of universities are all gone to rubbles. We're still teaching right now everything online electronically. Most of the students are trying to finish their during the war, but it's very tough right now. There's no internet. Some of them don't even have the phones anymore. You can't even charge it. There's no electricity. You have to pay to charge the phone. You have to pay for the internet. You have, that's the way it is. And in addition to that is the starvation. You have to look for food and water before you look for education, of course. And the movement. You keep displacement every other day. Some people have been displaced now 30, 40 times. The next day they call the army, say you have to move. They leave their house or leave their tents or whatever, go to another place. I still have brothers and sisters over there. My brother had moved to the south, to Canunes, then at the hospital, the European, and then they had to evacuate. Then he went to Zawaida in the center. Now he went back to Gaza. So you don't know. You have to grab whatever you can, clothes, and just walk on it. You don't have no rides, so you have to be light and you have to carry as much essentials at the same time. It's not easy, especially if you have kids, if you have elder persons that disabled. How are you going to carry them? There's no transportations, not much of cars. A few cars that are still moving. I don't know how they're doing it. There's no for the past few months they haven't no food, no electricity. I mean, no even gasoline, not even going in. So I don't know how they're operating the cars. Some of them hide, some gasoline get stored in tanks for a while, and they sell it in very ridiculous prices. So you only use it for the time. What sets the way before the plot is Barber's empathetic and unobstructed narrative style. He acts as a conduit, allowing the family's experience to speak for themselves, yet skillfully provides just enough contextual information to ensure readers grasp the gravity and unique dimensions of the people. I don't want to take much of your time. It is an essential read for anyone seeking to move beyond headlines and engage with the life experience of individuals in the Gaza Strip. It's a book that educates the mind and touches the heart, offering powerful reminder of our shared humanity and the enduring capacity for hope. Brian has delivered a profound and necessary work that resonates long after the final page is turned. I have a couple of notices inside the book. In page 55, you have wrote, "Your father and I could propose your hand in marriage to her." We don't, in the Palestinian culture, you propose the girl's marriage and the female marriage, not the person, not the bride, the groom marriage. It's always the female marriage, her hand, not his hand. But you use the one, his hand. I also noticed that most of the three families you have are all from Nusayrat, from Mid Gaza, and from South. I guess you didn't experience any families from the north, Burjabalia, Betlaia, Bet Hanun. And I guess that's it. Finally, it's an honor to have the chance to comment on such a great book and author. And thank you for your commitment, Dr. Brian. Thank you very much.
For now, thank you, Dr. Ahmed, for your comments. Really, it shed more lights on the great book of Dr. Barber. Yeah. Now we're gonna start the part of the question and answer, and if you may allow me to start my question, and then I'll open the floor. That's a privilege of the chairs, as they say in the UN. I have the UN language for me always. So, Dr. Barber, do you believe that what Israel is doing is just a reaction to October 7th, or a premeditated plan? It has been waiting for a long time. Did you hear that the Egyptian intelligence passed the news to the Israelis? There will be an attack. Maybe they didn't say October 7th or when, but they passed the information. And yet, now Israel wants history to start with October 7th. And they impose that narrative on every government. Everyone speaks at the UN starts October 7, October 7, October 7, October 7. So what do you think that is? How do you read what the Israelis are doing? Is that just a reaction to October 7?
No. Even early prime ministers of Israel expressed openly that they regret having taken Gaza. Israel has never, well, let's put it more broadly, Zionism simply believes or maintains that that land will be Jewish land with as few, if any, Arabs in it. That is the most basic tenet of Zionism. And, you know, we forget sometimes that life in Gaza before October 7, 2023 was miserable. Really bad. Not that bad? Were you there?
Livable.
Livable, okay. Okay.
5 hospitals.
But the pressure from the Israelis, you would agree, I hope, kept.
The blockade on Gaza, that was the problem.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, so only to say that Israel has been increasingly strangling Gazans. And October 7, and you're right, it has been documented that Israel knew a year in advance the precise plans that were to be used at some point against them. And they saw military exercises, if you can call a massive military, right beforehand. So I think it's the perfect excuse Israel can use to do what they've always wanted to do, and that is to move all of you out of Palestine. Gaza now, obviously, it's very clear that the push is ever southward, and eventually, I believe, it's out. And we know in the West Bank, more subtly, ethnic cleansing is proceeding apace. And so, yeah, no.
Yeah, thank you. The floor is yours. Yes, Bashar.
Yes, thank you both. I would love to give you a hug for, I know your emotions that you're going through. I think I can speak with that. And I would love to shake your hand for your, and congratulations for your effort on this book. I'm interested in learning about your experience. You said you had made presentations to in other places that were mostly non-Palestinian or non-Arab. I would like to know what the reactions that you have received and how receptive, the people were to your presentation.
The question was, how receptive have been my non-Palestinian audience at events like this? Uniformly positive. And I learned this decades ago when I started giving speeches at university settings or in academic conferences. I would present information on Palestine. And as soon as people hear or get a feel for the realities on the ground, they feel. And that's what I hope this book will do, is actually encourage people to really feel the truth of the situation. Yes, so it's been all very positive. And I'm eager to hear your questions in addition, because I'd like to know what Palestinian Americans want to know about as well.
When was the last time you were in Gaza?
March of 2020. When Corona hit. I was actually in Gaza when Corona hit badly and took one of the last flights out of Tel Aviv to get home.
I have a question for you. If there's anything that happened that affected you, anything you couldn't put it in the book, couldn't include it in the book, that's something that has emotional value to you.
Actually not, because my intent in the book was to not involve myself at all. So you'll hear nothing about me except for the occasional times when one of the three is interacting with me. I wanted the book to be their voices, not mine. And there are many things that I have suffered and experienced that I might someday put in a different book.
Any question? Floor? Anyone? Yes, please, Bashar.
Yeah.
For the live stream.
I visited Palestine for like about 25 times between 1994 and 2003. Maybe the last time was 2009, but it was a brief visit. What I'm seeing out of the Israelis since October 7th, although it was, I didn't expect that they would get to that level. I knew that they were brutal, and I knew they dehumanized the Palestinians. But I didn't see, when I visited, I didn't see that level of viciousness. From your experience, I'm not sure if you have interacted with Israelis during your being there for those many times. Have you seen the transformation? Is there a change? I know that there is I was shocked at the level that they got to. I know that they were vicious and they were criminal, but I didn't realize that they were that vicious and that criminal. What's your experience, since you might have a different, less biased view of that?
Again, I need to acknowledge that I'm an American and I'm trying to speak for Palestinians and Gazans as best I can. The viciousness of the Israeli military has been evident periodically, 2006, 8, 12, 14, and on. And every time people would say this is the worst that can be. It can be. 2014 for Haman was the worst possible. So the reach and the brutality has gotten progressively worse. I think that part of the reason it's so crazy this time is largely the composition of the Israeli government, which includes these very right-wing people who really don't care about you, literally, and say it openly, and craft policies to eliminate you. So I guess that's one component of the equation that I want to highlight.
Can I just say a comment?
Yeah.
Can I just say?
You want to make a comment?
Yeah, just a comment about Bashar.
Yeah.
2003, the Israeli military crushed Rachel Corrie, an American, because she was in Rafah protecting a house from being demolished. They've always been vicious. Now they, after October 7th, they don't care, but they have always been vicious.
You want to also make a comment? I'll give you the question to my brother Miller, okay, who said if things were okay. And I really strongly deny that. I've been going back and forth on this. In 2012, human rights groups and humanitarian organization put a report. It's called Gaza 2020. And they were expecting completely the normal life in Gaza will cease to exist in 2020. Gaza was subject to the following wars: 2006 at the end of it, and early 2007, which is Beit Hanun when Gilad Shalit was kidnapped. And Desmond Tutu wrote an important report and he said war crimes had been committed. 2008, 2009, the war. 2012, there was another war. 2014, 50 days of war. 2018, 2019, the right of return marches, which is they were shooting from, they were demonstrating in Gaza, inside Gaza, and the 330 people were killed by snipers, by the way, from the other side. And 2021, Saif al-Quds, as you know. Gaza had been under siege from 2007 until, of course, until now it's completely destroyed. But the genuinity and the resilience of the Gazan people, that's where come. Those who always come out of from under the rubble and rebuild Gaza. That is something unbelievable. No one can do it except the people of Gaza. I don't think the West Bank can do it, or Jordan, or anyone, or Syria, or anyone can come out of these rubbles, come out of wars, come out of miseries, come out of death, and start building again, standing. As the whole book is all about that. They went through hell, they went through misery, they went through prison camp, through discrimination, and yet they come out, and because they have no choice. Some people had never been out of Gaza, or in fact, most of them, they never been. And the second important element of Gaza people, which is, we know any people from Gaza here, and correct me if I'm wrong, education. They cling with their nails to education. They think that their escape, their way of getting out of all the miseries is through education. Thank you very much. And now you're sorry.
You mentioned that back in the 90s, you had no interest in Palestine, like know nothing about Gaza. And then now, I don't know if it's fair to say that you devoted your life to tell Gaza's story and its people. So if so, how do you use this personal experience to make more people aware about, just to know about Gaza and its people's stories, beside the book? If like people just not interested, how do you, use your story to tell about people in Gaza?
Yes, I've done that regularly. So I was an academic. Our job is to give speeches and to write papers and the like. So regularly I have shared what I've learned through those media. I talk as often as I can to whomever will listen, and frankly, the book is the ultimate of my efforts to try to communicate what I've experienced.
Just a simple answer. Have you paid any price for signing the policy? That's all.
My question was, have I paid any price for siding with the Palestinians?
Of course. Of course.
Yeah, what you'd expect. I remember one address I gave it early in the late 90s, just describing the findings of our study, just descriptive things, how many people, who did what, and so forth, at an academic conference in Baltimore. And I thought it went fairly well. And then I learned from the board of the society that someone had come to them and said, how dare you support the work of a terrorist, referring to me. So you'd expect that. I've been on the hate lists, Canary, and but I guess I've been, now that the book is out, who knows what's coming. But personally, since I'm so connected with Gaza since October 7, well, it's nothing like you. I've suffered plenty.
So quickly, I have two questions, if I may. The first is similar on the notes of the previous two questions about your tenure as an academic and studying Gaza and the Palestinian people for 30 years. How have you seen, if any, a shift in your role as an academic, specifically speaking on Palestinian studies? And how has that shifted specifically within the last 2 years? And then I have another question after.
So I actually retired in 2017, so I've not been involved in the academic sphere. But I can say proudly that my research teams and I, since 2010 and beyond, have been able to publish things in major medical and psychological journals. Our studies that just include Palestinians. You might guess that all other studies that were allowed to be published had to have a Jewish countersample. The equivalence nonsense. But we were the first able, we were in Lancet many times, first able to, and I think it's because of the rigor of the research we did, we were able to get this work published in the best places. So I think that's a big shift in academia.
And secondly, I am curious to know whether Hamam, Khalil, and Hussam got copies of the book translated, and if so, were you able to speak to them about what their thoughts are on the writing of portraying their stories and their experiences?
All three have read every word of the book before I published it. I insisted that I get their approval to make sure that I understood and I captured their experience as well. All three of them are really pleased and proud of it, and feel grateful that their stories could be told. And I'm in touch with them constantly. And they might even be listening, depending on the internet. they're always wanting to know about these events and how things went, and so.
Welcome here in New Jersey. I was in Gaza 2 weeks before October 2nd. And I love to talk and meet and discuss political issue with our people in Gaza. I don't go there just only to eat in the restaurant and go to the beach. I seen life was good compared to what we have right now. Now Gaza unlivable completely. We have universities here. I visited about 4 or 5 universities, and what we see here is unlivable life in Gaza, period. So, but if you have the chance to go back again, would you do again? To study the situation of youth between 2020, where the last time he was here, but he wasn't, and now. Life is, you're going to see a lot of difference in life. Thank you.
I would go back immediately as soon as permitted under one condition. And that condition would be that I don't burden the families by my presence. And they would feel, as you know, in your culture, they would feel the responsibility to care for me. And I don't want to give that to them. So I'm desperate to go back, and will as soon as I can feel that sense of comfort that I'm not burdening them.
I have a question. If anyone has a question, very much. Yeah, please.
Thank you for the inspirational words. It's important to hear firsthand accounts just from before the war and not during the war. I'm curious as to your religious background. So a personal question, and what it was like living. From what I know, Gaza is a religious society, and I was wondering, as an American, you don't have to tell them to say more than whatever, but I was curious.
So basically, what it was like living in a Muslim culture?
Yeah.
More conservative.
Orthodox Muslim. I won't say much about my religious history because it's quite convoluted, but it's always been Christian. I didn't have any difficulties really adapting to the culture, only because I was treated so respectfully and carefully all of the time. It was interesting to see how different individuals acted out the religion in different ways. Some very orthodox, praying 5 times a day, etc., and some not. And a lot of admiration, especially for Ramadan. I can remember I lived Ramadan twice in Gaza, and it was funny because it was so amazing especially to the kids, that this white American guy is fasting too. So yeah, I learned a lot and enjoyed a lot. Didn't find any difficulties accommodating. And I should also add, part of it is because no one pressured me to be Muslim, right? No one pressured me and tried to convert me. Maybe a couple did, but not so many.
And then try to kidnap you.
No kidnapping.
Okay. I'll ask two questions and maybe if there's no other questions, before I ask my question, I appeal to you that, yeah, there is someone in the corner, but don't forget to buy copies of the book. We have another box here, so it's $20. And Brian will be happy to sign it for you. And I strongly recommend that you buy it for your American friends also. And it will be translated into Spanish soon, and inshallah, in the future, will be in Arabic as well. The two questions, if you can tell us more about your experience in Jerusalem and the West Bank, because most of your talk was about Gaza. So if you have traced any differences in culture or in commitment or in loyalty to the cause. And the second, in March, President Trump said to the Palestinian, either you leave or you will face you with death. And we're gonna make it into a Rivera. Yeah. So he's been, maybe, he changed his maybe lexicon, but maybe the idea still there. I mean, he allowed.
Implementation is still there.
Huh?
Implementation.
Yeah, the implementation. I mean, you told me that they have 1,000 drones. He was planning to send them to Ukraine, but he sent them to Israel now. And yeah, they allowed this draft resolution to be vetoed. That means to allow the war to continue. So what is your intake on Trump, and would he be the president that he will maybe change the narrative and the equation, or will he would continue going with the Israeli plans as dictated by Netanyahu and his clique? Thank you.
So the first question about life in Jerusalem and the West Bank, I often feel badly that I talk so much about Gaza because Gaza is only part of Palestine. I have a lot of experience in the other territories. Are there differences? I could, if you put two, well, I'm not gonna say that. There's one level there is no difference whatsoever, and that is the commitment to freedom and struggle for rights and dignity. That doesn't change one bit, no matter where you are. And in fact, our research showed in some ways that West Bankers have suffered, this is before October 7th, have suffered even more so than Gazans in different ways. So it's not that Gaza is the only tragic place, but Palestine in general has been that way. All of the checkpoints, all of the rules, all of the inability to travel, the settlements and the like. So, I don't think of any kind of major differences I would draw. The food's pretty much the same, a little bit better in Gaza, but yeah. As for Trump, who can understand that individual? I don't know if Trump wants to win. He wants to be the winner. He'll do all sorts of things provocative. Now he's not friends with Bibi anymore. Whatever that's going to mean, we don't know. But what it's meaning right now is that he's doing nothing to stop the Israeli military from doing everything it can do. He's letting that happen, right? Putting no pressure whatsoever. And Biden, of course, was just as bad, letting it go. So it seems to me that the brakes are off, and Israel is being allowed to do everything it wants to do, and that is to clean you out. I hope it's not that, but just think of Gaza. It's 70% destroyed in rubble. Really? You're going to rebuild that and welcome people back? It'd take 3 years just to get rid of the rubble, or before you start even rebuilding. And where are the people going to be in that time?
place?
Hmm?
Same place,
in Molasi.
same place.
Last question in the corner, I think. One.
I just would like to say before I ask my questions, I just want to thank the entire panel for being here today and just telling us all about the book and your commentary. With that said, my question is for both Ryan and Dr. Ahmed. In relation to your personal experiences in Gaza and what was conveyed in the book, what are your thoughts about the ongoing battle of pro-Palestine support on U.S. campuses, both towards the faculty and students? Thank you.
Because I have one more, so we'll just combine them.
Oh no, I just wanted to ask, like, if there was one piece in your experience in the 25 years of studying Palestine, if there was one piece of it that you can bring back home and share with the world, like, that's like a visceral thing, what would it be? Because I feel like every time we talk about Palestine, it's always death and destruction. But being there and experiencing the people and the culture, what would be the thing that you would want to capture and share with everyone that would bring some light into people's hearts?
I'm really proud of the students who are protesting on campuses, and I hope they will continue. I'm disgusted with the response to that, and I think we're kind of winning that war because there's been now pushback from some of the universities against the administration's new regulations, and I think it's having a powerful effect when people see how many thousands and tens of thousands of Americans want to really change the situation. I think it's really positive. So I learned a couple things. The first is that human beings can suffer from a lot of different things and can be almost destroyed by different forces in the world. But what I've learned is that when the persecution is at the individual directly, at your worth as a human being, that we don't give up. There is a defensiveness amongst us that requires us to struggle back. You can deprive me of every belonging I have and make my life miserable, but if you tell me I'm subhuman with no dignity, then I'm going to fight you. And so what I would want to communicate is that what I learned in Gaza was that Gazans will not, Palestinians will not give up. In no way. And they'll live in Gaza every minute they possibly can. But they will not give up because your desires are reasonable. They're good, they're normal, they're human, and people are scandalizing you over and over. And what I'm so admiring of is your ability to fight against that, to not let people destroy you.
Going back to the university and the students, what's going on right now, I think we have the future. I think there's a big change going on in the United States right now. We have never even dreamt that in our wildest dream that what's gonna happen. I think is a big percentage, a large percentage of the students, even in the Ivy League universities, are with the Palestinian cause. And I saw a speech by the head of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League. He was saying we are losing the battle to TikTok. We are losing the university. And I think in 20 years from now, the same kids in school right now in the Ivy League, they're the one that are gonna be in Congress, they're gonna be in the White House, and they're gonna be in the Senate, inshallah. And I hope this is gonna happen very, very sooner than that, inshallah.
Thank you. I will ask, yes, yeah, please.
To thank Dr. Brian Barber for this book. And one thing that you said about the characters in the book, that you said that the science say that they should have been grow up with mental issues and problems and be dysfunctional members of society, but they grew up to be very successful PhDs and very successful leaders in their own rights. And this is the Palestinian people. This is the Palestinian people. We are people that we believe we have a just cause. We believe we love life, and we will, the same way the whole world thinks that Gaza is destroyed right now. We're going to rebuild Gaza, and it's going to be better than it was before. And inshallah, the occupation is going to end, and it's going to end soon.
First, I want to thank Professor Brian Barber for his great remarks.